2019 was the year of George Masvidal. Now, first off, I disagree. I do not give Masvidal Fighter of the Year. I don't even give him mention as Fighter of the Year as a compliment. It's a backhanded compliment, but I've been following Masvidal. We were fighting together in Bodog back in 2006. I remember the first time I saw this guy. I remember when he came through the curtain. There was just something to Masvidal, right? You got this kid, he's got a tattoo on his neck, he's looking to fist fight anybody out there. I mean, Masvidal just had something special. But the point is, if you were like me and you followed him for this long, or if you just go pull his record up and look at it, you're going to see the year of 2019 was nothing new. So I'm trying to compliment him, and I realize I'm backhanded, but George Masvidal has put 3 wins together. George Masvidal's stopped 3 guys. Anything you want to say about George Masvidal that he did in 2019, he has done multiple other times in his career, but he didn't do it in front of as many people. So I do recognize that. And this sport largely is the recognition business. So I get where was the year of George Masvidal. For me, it's what do you do with George Masvidal? And that's a very tricky spot. It really is. You guys are going to be upset. Allow me to upset you briefly, but allow me to make the comparison to professional wrestling. And many things that I have said in much of my career and my fondness for professional wrestling have been greatly embellished. I don't even watch that product. I didn't particularly enjoy that product most of my life. But when I was a little kid and I did come up through the Hulk Hogan's and I loved the Demolitions and the Ultimate Warrior, came back for the Stone Colds and the Rocks, same as you guys did, okay? But you can learn a lot through the history of professional wrestling. You really can, particularly when it comes to the world of promotion. I mean, don't forget, Vince McMahon himself said, I could sell out Madison Square Garden to watch a wrestler take on a mop if I had enough time. Now, the reason that that's a relevant statement, he's a damn good promoter. It's hard enough to fill up in a building doing a real sport. This is a guy who's telling you openly, I don't have a real sport. And you'll fill up any arena in the world. I mean, there's something you've got to learn the history of professional wrestling. One thing that professional wrestling did, and as I'd like to tie it into this piece, they used to have something called the World Heavyweight Champion, which when I was a kid was Hulk Hogan, but then they also had something called the Intercontinental Champion. And the Intercontinental Champion was kind of over here. It wasn't the world champion, but it was the only other belt that you could get, so it came with a ton of prestige. It could headline events. It could be on posters. It was a very special title. And yeah, I admit it wasn't the World Heavyweight Championship, but you had a whole lot of other guys in the back, and somebody had to be recognized. So you had what was called the Intercontinental Championship. In, I believe it was 1989. I'd have to go back and look, but the biggest wrestling match of all time took place. And it was at a WrestleMania, and it pitted Hulk Hogan, the heavyweight champion of the world, versus the Ultimate Warrior, who was the Intercontinental Champion. Now, not only were Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior megastars at that time, but they had never done a champion versus champion match. There had never been a time where the A side walks out with a belt over his shoulder and the B side walks out with a belt around his waist, or in Warrior's case, swinging it over his head. It had just never been done before, and it was a very well-known thing. That even though these were the 2 top prizes, it was not a champion and a number 1 contender. They were going to run separately. They were going to have different people trying to become the top contender for the Intercontinental title. They had a separate group trying to become the top contender for the World Championship. This is just the way that it worked. But I bring this in because it does largely reflect where Masvidal is at. Masvidal is a champion, and that's going to piss some of you guys off, and I take a great pleasure in that. But Masvidal is champion. He is the BMF champion, the end. Now, whether they choose to contest that thing, or they choose to make that a one-night thing, I think that story's still to be told. But when you do have that, does he necessarily have to go into Usman? He would certainly qualify, much like the Ultimate Warrior against Hulk Hogan. It made all the sense in the world. We got 2 belts. I think we got to put these guys together. It certainly would qualify, but it also can qualify to have a separate lane, where guys who are coming after this title and guys who are coming after this title. And I think it just becomes, what do you want to do with him moving forward? And once you figure that out, then what do you do with Kamaru? Here's the other thing that happened in 2019. While George Masvidal finally got recognized to everybody who wasn't in the know as this huge star, everybody who is in the know also got revealed to the fact that Kamaru Usman is one tough son of a bitch. I mean, a lot of people did not understand, and I got to throw myself in that category. I knew he was very good. I knew he was a very good athlete. I mean, he could take his t-shirt off and I could take one look at him and go, okay, here's a guy that's in shape. Wonder what he's good at, but here, something special here. We didn't know quite how good Kamaru was. I mean, is that fair? First, he runs through RDA, who used to be world champion. Then he goes right through T Wood at T Wood's own skill, which was wrestling and keeping him down. I mean, this was where we really started to see, whoa, this guy separated himself from the pack. Then he goes in there in an absolute knockdown, drag out, dirty. I mean, his fight with Colby was straight up dirty. These guys are poking each other. They're low blowing each other. It gets all the way to the 5th round. I mean, this was a long, drawn out, gritty fight. And all of a sudden you stand back and go, okay, this guy's really good at fighting. So he has to fight somebody. You know, you got some good options there. Leon Edwards' names comes to mind. Of course, Masvidal is going to fit that bill. You could slip somebody in. Then all of a sudden, Usman is starting to talk about GSP. By the way, first time George St-Pierre has ever really been called out. And I realize some guys before have said, I want to fight St-Pierre. Well, that's when he was on top of the world. Everybody wants to get to the main event. Everybody wants their title. Sure, they never thought they could beat him, but they wanted to get that shot. They'll happily go right back down, tell their grandkids about the time they fought for the strap. Kamaru being above George and calling out George, I mean, in many ways, this is the first time St-Pierre has ever been called out. I think that George St-Pierre has made it very clear to anybody who's willing to listen, I will come back, but I will only come back for Khabib. Nothing personal against Khabib, but it's got to be a 155-pound title. I want to do the 170 thing, the 185 thing, the 155-pound thing. That's what I want to do. 170, I ruled the nest there for 3 different generations. Kamaru, go ahead and get on with it. I think that that's very fair by George. I think he's made that very clear. The other side of the coin is George is an animal who is now being attacked in a certain way. And I don't know what those buttons are. And I don't know that Kamaru has hit them yet. It seems as though Kamaru is very nice and very respectful and even gone as far as to call it a dream fight. And I don't think that's going to upset St-Pierre. The other side of the coin is St-Pierre is an animal. And if he is backed into a corner and he is poked just the right way, he's going to come back. I don't know that we're there yet. But it does beg the question, do we have to do Masvidal versus Usman? I would love your guys' opinions, because if you were to go back to professional wrestling, that's the last thing anybody in fighting wants to do. I get it. You're going to hate that I even made this analogy and this comparison, but I do think it's fair in the world of promotion to just share a historical fact with you that 2 of the biggest stars that Vince McMahon ever had were at the same time, right? Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. They both had belts, but there was a built-in mechanism that, hey, everybody else in the division, either get in this line and pursue a contendership for the IC title, or get in this line and pursue a contendership for the heavyweight title. It was only a one-time and a one-off that those worlds met, and they both walked out with a belt over their shoulder.